Kathy, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Just for everybody's awareness, Kathy is in travel status right now, so that's what we're waiting for. We're sorry for the delay, but we'll wait till she gets on. She's going to chair the meeting from Teams, so that's what we're waiting for. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello?
You there?
Yeah. Hey, you can barely hear me?
We can hear you now.
Welcome everybody. It's Robert Sancho. Okay, welcome everybody to the council meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and I don't have a time in front of me. 6:14 p.m. And if with that, we will ask for roll call, please.
Kathy Travers,
Here.
Tara Gishik,
Here.
Travis Morrison,
Here.
Shane Drift,
Here.
Robert Moyer.
Here.
Okay, and is Vern there? I don't see him.
No, he is not.
If we can just do a moment of silence as the invocation.
You were muted.
Oh, can one of the tribal council members please read the consent agenda?
Do we want to do approval of the minutes first? Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Approval of agenda. I'll add a couple. I'll add a couple things here. The first will be Kim Greiner with the 5242 proposal from the state, and then I would like to add under Jalen Strong, Voyagers for education community engagement discussion.
Other additions to the agenda?
Yep, and then there's a deletion for the powwow donation under Tony Wakemup, but we deleted it.
Is that it then? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Those additions and deletions.
Move.
Moved by Tara, is there a second?
Second by Travis.
Second by Travis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Carried. Next, we have the meeting minutes, and what's the meeting date?
We have meeting dates of September 6th and October 4th.
Had a question on the meeting minutes from September 6, 2023. Under the consent agenda as follows. Letter A, approved to purchase docks from Manic Docks for $41,632. Do we know, are the docks taken out? I think the lake is frozen over or is freezing over. Do they need to stay in the water or do they need to be taken out? Do we know?
I don't have an answer for that, Shane, but I will get that answer to you.
Okay.
I believe they told us they stay in.
It's what?
I believe they told us they stay in.
Stay in? Okay.
Those posts are pounded pretty deep in the ground, and the docks will raise and lower with the level of the water. But
And then my next question is regarding the letters C and D, where we're talking about David Farmer proposal to complete the new moon deficiencies and also the change from 10 hours to 30 hours. How is that going? This is what I'm talking about.
My apologies, I couldn't hear back there, but as far as the new moon deficiencies go, progress is being made, very nicely made. We've gotten the quotes and bids from some contractors and working through the funding sources with what we have available through some grant funding to take care of the capital purchases. And as soon as those are ready for finalization, we'll get those approved and moving forward. And as far as the other work and agreement goes, we did rectify with both parties between us and one of our contractors, allowing the work to continue without going outside of the scope of the contract, both financially and outside of the terms and conditions of what you had previously agreed to. So that's been rectified.
Thank you.
Just for everybody's, I don't know, notification, this is Dan Rabideau. He is our CEO for Health and Human Services, for anybody that didn't know, online or in the audience.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Dan. Any other questions on the minutes?
Are we approving those minutes? Are we gonna approve them, or are we gonna approve them as a blanket?
That's what yep. I move to approve September 6th and October 4th, 2023 minutes.
Thank you, Dara. Motion by Sarah, is there a second? We have a second? Hello? Hello?
I'll second it.
Second by Robert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent? Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda, I believe. Audience, can someone please read out the consent agenda?
Kathy, I will.
Thank you. Thank you.
Consent agenda. A, approved bid for Heritage Center repairs to Valiant Construction, 400. B, approved resolution number 19-2024, agreement with PSC for background adjudication training, 400. C, approved resolution number 22-2024, changing the Wilderness Bank account signatories, 400. Sorry. D, approved resolution number 26-2024, Housing Trust Fund Grant, 400. E, approved RFP for legal services for Boysport Family Health Services, 400. F, approved sole source request to Bobcat for Duluth for repairs, 400. G, approved RFP selection for home demo cleanup to Udovich Enterprises, 400. H, approved the suggestion campaign contributions from the Jacobson Law Group, 400. I, denied donation request to Ann Cook for memorial services, 230. J, approved 500 donation to each community Halloween party, Net Lake and Vermilion, 400. Approved sole source request to DocuSign for annual renewal, 400. Approved payment for the veterans in the amount of $500 per veteran, 400.
Correction at 50.
Did I say 500?
Yeah.
Oh, 50. Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
50.00.
one thing is, under letter F, or letter H, where they approve the suggested campaign contributions from the Jacobson Law Group. What that was for is for the Democratic candidates and party. I just want to point that out. And also the for the donation for the Ann Cook Memorial Services, I voted in favor of it, just for the record. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We got a hand raise, Darren.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I know somebody brought this up once before, but I thought the consent agenda was for things that were non-controversial and were just approved quickly. Now we have Shane here talking how he opposed different things. So now we have items on the consent agenda that we don't know about, and we have council members kind of objectifying to what was voted on in these consent agenda items. It would be nice if we did keep it to a simple, approvals for things and kept out the controversial stuff so the public and people would be able to know what kind of decisions you're making and why you're making them.
Thank you, Darren. Luke, can you read the next agenda item, please?
Yep. Next, we got Pam Parson for a monthly compliance update.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just here to give my report on the compliance program. So the first item is the top 3 issues that we're working on right now. And that would be, one of them would be the 2023 required training. Trying to wrap that up. So our staff are getting finished with their training for the 2023 training. There's approximately 23 hours of training that was assigned on MedTrainer. It was really high this year because we included the safety, fire, and OSHA training for employees. And we also included a couple additional trainings that we will be needing for accreditation in the future. Another issue that I'm working on, or thing that I'm working on for compliance, is completing the security risk assessment. Along with that, we'll be working on a work plan for 2024. So we expect to get that done by the end of November. The top 3 risks that we're monitoring currently, of course, is cybersecurity. There's a lot of different things going on in that arena. Another one is our employees not logging out of their computers, which is a compliance issue. And then also employees checking their personal emails on our system. And for them last 2, or all 3 of them items, what we're doing is we're doing a lot of education, education on cybersecurity, security awareness. And then the other ones, just, gentle reminders for staff. I feel like the compliance program does have all the resources I need to fulfill the responsibilities for compliance. So we do have the money, the staff, and the tools. I feel like we do have access to the people, information, and the data I need for the compliance program. I also feel like I have sufficient authority to do this job, to be the compliance person. And people do take my concerns seriously most of the time. Sometimes I might need to educate people on the regulations and the legal requirements. And then I am included in most of the meetings when we're discussing new strategies, projects, and initiative, just to make sure that we're pursuing them compliantly. So that's really all I have. Next month I'll go a little bit into our security risk assessment for everybody. That'll be kind of an educational thing also. But does anybody have any questions? Okay, no questions.
Pam,
Yeah?
this is Tara. You might want to just do a small blurb about why you have to be on the agenda and what kind of, how it affects your compliance, just so the audience and people attending know.
Okay, yep, that's no problem. So the OIG has set out some new rules, and so they have 4 recommended actions that they're requiring. And that is, the first one is to regularly meet with me in a public forum and also in the executive session. Um, Really, it's just to give me free reign and free access to talk to the Reservation Tribal Council on compliance issues that are going on. Um, Another thing they really want everyone to do as far as the tribal government or any governing body, is to routinely ask all of the organizational leaders about compliance, about how we're doing in our compliance department. We need to be able to get, tribal council needs to get information from multiple sources. So not only me, they really should be talking to the other leaders in health and human services to find out about our compliance program. Education's really key for us to get buy-in for the compliance program. And then we really need to regularly review our organizational risk data and our information. And Randy, acting as the security official for Health and Human Services, helps out with a lot of that. So that's really what we want to do, is we want to make sure that I am invited to every meeting, because that proves compliance when it's documented in the meeting minutes and then also in the executive session. So that's one of the reasons I have to come monthly and do this. Thanks,
Thank you.
Tara.
Thank you, Pam.
Oh, I'd like to point out, I just received a text and a band member told me to keep doing what I'm doing. So, thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, you guys can move on. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Pam.
Yep.
Next, we got Jeff Holth to discuss a couple policies. First, he will do the Boys Fort Housing Essential Housing Policy.
All right, good evening, council and everyone. I am presenting a couple policies for your consideration. I've got these in place of Janelle. Janelle was not able to attend the meeting tonight, so I am presenting on her behalf. I'll go over each of the policies separately. They are kind of related, but they are technically separate policies. So just as some background, I was directed by the council to put together these policies for consideration. And basically what they do is they allow the band to take advantage of certain exceptions that HUD allows for occupancy for Boys Fort housing. These are exceptions that are on the books and allowed by HUD, but in order for Boys Fort to take advantage of them, Boys Fort's got to develop their own policies that reflect the HUD requirements. So really, these policies aren't, they're not a lot of creation of new policy or law. What they really are is they reflect the HUD requirements to take advantage of these policies. The first is the essential family policy, and I won't go through everything in detail, but I'll try to give you a just a general summary of what this does. As a general rule, Indian Housing Block Grant assistance for Nahasda housing, for Boys Fort housing, is typically limited to low-income Native families on the reservation. What this policy does is it allows, under certain limited circumstances, the band to utilize Boys Fort housing for what HUD refers to as essential families. And these are basically the families that are, the language that HUD uses are essential to the well-being of Native families on the reservation. Most tribes who adopted these have used the essential family policy for housing certain workforce, certain families that are employed by the band that need housing assistance. The policy outlines all of the HUD requirements that are required in order for the band to deem someone an essential family and allow them to use housing. So it goes through determining how a family is deemed essential, that there's housing need, and that there's a need for specific assistance through the band's housing in order to meet the needs of the essential family. It goes through sort of the decision-making process, which is a recommendation from the housing director and then final approval by the RTC. And then also documentation requirements that HUD imposes on the band to have sort of records in place to support housing essential families within its housing stock. So I guess I'll stop there and see if there's any questions. I'll do my best to answer.
Yes, the question I have is, when you're determining if a family is essential, and it goes on to give a list of essential families, which include but not really are limited to teachers, firefighters, doctors, and other healthcare providers. With that being written like that, are we able to add other things into it, like EMS, whatever else?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the list that's in the policy is what is listed out in the HUD notice as just examples. But the policy is sure to say that those are examples. They're not limited to those examples. And so for determining if a family is essential, the policy is really written broadly to give the band and the RTC a lot of discretion. Because obviously, depending on circumstances, especially if you think about COVID and things like that, things can come up that really can change the dynamic of who's deemed essential. So there's a lot of discretion for the band to decide that. And that list you cited, Shane, is non-inclusive, meaning it could certainly include additional occupations or individuals beyond that list.
Jeff, I have a question. This is Tara.
Sure.
When were you instructed to do this?
This was a Monday morning meeting where there was a discussion about I think at that meeting there was, I think, a belief that the band had already had an essential family policy in place. And so the direction I got from that meeting was to look at whether there was that essential policy in place. As it turns out, no one could find it. And so in response to that, I had talked with and coordinated with, I think, Kathy and Kim and Janelle, and the decision was to put together a draft policy. So this is what would be required to do the essential families policy, but it's entirely up to the band whether it wants to adopt it or not. It's discretionary, and you wouldn't have to if you didn't want to.
Is this for the tiny homes? Remember, we had the idea of using, since nobody's using those tiny homes,
Right.
to have that for doctors and, temporarily for
Yep.
people to come in and that are working for us temporarily. I didn't think that it was meant to have, to actually have another home here for a family. Just to let you know that this kind of, although I think it's a good idea to provide housing for essential workers, we got to fix our own housing and homeless issue also. And I don't want this to take precedent over our band members or our homeless band members that we should be trying to get into these homes or transitioning, anything like that. So that's what I think.
Hear me? Hello?
We can hear you just a little bit louder, maybe.
We can hear you, Kath. Go ahead.
We can't hear you.
Hear me now? Hello?
Yeah,
Hear me now?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I was saying that, like say if we hire people, we know housing is hard to find everywhere for people that are coming to work for us. And in the event that they can find other housing, because I mean, they may not want to live on the reservation or live within housing, but at least it's something temporary. But we do want our band members to have housing as well. But we will never get any workforce if we can't utilize some of the homes um, for workers because they can't find housing. So we're kind of stuck in a catch-22 type thing. So it's whatever the council would like to do, though. But we really need to get. But the first thing people ask about when they want to get a job is their housing available. And so I think that's really something that we need to look at. So I know that Fond du Lac is going to be building, and talking with Chairman Dupie, they talked about building an apartment complex, some type of building across from Black Bear to help with employee housing. So I think that's really something that the band should look at in the future, for coming in our maybe a strategic plan.
I just had 3 questions about it. The first one was this policy, if someone is considered to be an essential family, does that put them at the top of the list above band members? My second question is, does that change the rental rate for these people? And the third one is, I think Shane already asked it, but would EMS be considered under the healthcare staff?
I think I can answer most of those questions. So the rental rate that's listed in this policy is fair market value. So it's not a reduced rate for essential families. It's what the fair market value is basically deemed off of a process that could be adopted by council to figure out what the market rate would be. So it wouldn't be subsidized. The list, the housing has its own, I believe, has its own policies for how it structures lists, and it's required to maintain lists in a sort of a fair, transparent way. This would be woven into the current process for how the lists work, is my understanding. I don't know what that list policy looks like, but every tribe that has IHBG Nahaza housing is required to keep that list policy that would apply to, all applicants for housing, whether they were essential families or low income housing applicants. And then in terms of EMS, I think it certainly could. Like I said, the definition in this policy, which is how HUD structures it in their notice too, is really leaves a lot of discretion for the band and whoever's making that decision for an essential family to determine whether or not they are essential. So the policy doesn't preclude it or expressly allow it. It would be up to the band to decide in that circumstance whether they'd be deemed essential, but it certainly doesn't prohibit it.
I think before, I remember that we talked about this before with Dan about upstairs at the tribal council meeting room, is that I asked if the Health and Human Services could purchase homes to set aside for their staff, like an EMS, EMT, or whoever, for their staff. That way that would bypass this. I mean, that's something I think we should still look at. Thank you.
Darren, you're up.
Okay. Does this policy allow those essential families to live in low income houses, like that housing has set aside for low income families?
That is what, yes, that is what the policy would allow if under it a family was deemed essential and met all the requirements. Correct.
Okay, so I'd just like to object against that because they were first put for low income families, kind of like Tara said, and we should take care of them first.
You hear me? I'm trying to talk as loud as I can.
We can hear you.
Did you hear me?
Hey, Kathy. I'm just gonna try to call you and I'll put you on the phone, okay? It'll be okay.
Can you hear me now, Nikki?
Yep.
Basically, what I was saying is that I asked Jeff if the housing director makes the recommendation. I mean, they go through the application process and everything, but it is the housing director that makes the recommendation to the council for that. Is that how that goes?
Right.
Okay. So it's still up to the housing authority to make that decision.
Right. It's initially processed through housing, just like an application process for any housing for
Okay.
Voice Fort. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So council, what do you want to do? Do you want to table? Do you want to pass, discuss more, or what would you like to do with this policy? Because I think the other one coming up might be similar to that.
Myself,
It-
I think that we should look at tabling it. I also feel that maybe it should just be up to the housing director to make the determination rather than a tribal council.
Shane, you said something about housing director make the recommendation.
Yes, the housing director should make the the tribal council should not be making the determination. That it should be up to the housing director.
Okay, all right. Sounds good to me. Council?
I'd say table for the time being, but we got to prioritize our band members and especially low income band members for these places, what they're designed for. If there's other types of housing that aren't labeled for like that low income, maybe we could look at doing something like that for essential workers. But I think the low income should just stay for our band members, and we gotta prioritize them over anything. So, but I'd sure like to talk about it more too.
The only thing I guess I'd like to say is that on the Net Lake side, we really need a place if we're going to have our EMS staffed. It'd be nice to use I'll just say the tiny home in Net Lake as an example, where we could have an EMT or somebody be available because right now the room that is delegated for that is being used by office staff. So they don't have a place to, usually everybody gets together at the hall, you know, the fire hall or ambulance hall. We don't have that capability in Net Lake. I know we've discussed that about EMS before because of the need for EMTs, and you know, we've talked about contracting with outside EMTs, educating more EMTs, whatever. But when you have a, you know, that's one of the issues that we've been talking about for Net Lake anyway.
Are the tiny homes actually income based and stuff, like for designed for just low income, or are they just a, you know, a regular housing place that could be used by anyone, no
That's a
matter
good
what?
question.
Hold on, here comes Kim.
Jeff, are those homes just deemed as homes? I mean, are they low? Are they considered low rent or home ownership? Or we got
Well,
it through COVID, through funding for COVID.
I think they had initial, and maybe Kim can confirm, I think they had initially sort of COVID-related restrictions on them, but once the pandemic passed, I think they moved into the ban's regular Nahasda stock. Is that right, Kim?
Yeah, we use the term low-income housing, which is the IHBG formula funds, and so it's under that rule. So if you want to use the tiny home to house a non, you know, like a, let's say you have an EMT coming in to stay and they're not low income, or you're going to use it as like some places rent a house and the EMTs take turns staying there. You're not, you know, so you would have to have a policy like that to do this. And we had one a long time ago, but we couldn't find we thought we had one. It's just like law enforcement. If you want a law enforcement officer to stay in the houses, they're not low income. You had to have that policy in place, but there was one there. I don't know if it was ever approved at the council or if it was an old one. They just couldn't find it.
Yeah, I think there's not enough information for me to make a decision on this. It's too broad. You know, I thought we were talking about just the tiny homes for now, for a temporary space, but this policy doesn't, nowhere does it say just the tiny homes or just this certain home. You know, it opens it up for everything. And what really disturbs me is it says private and governmental programs. In cases involving home ownership, the ban should determine if the family could qualify for a conventional or government-backed mortgage, example HUD 184, loan guarantees, blah, 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 all the way through. And it says for a family who could qualify for a mortgage but was rejected due to credit problems, the ban should consider if the applicant family would be able to meet program requirements, including repayment if applicable. We don't even do that for our own band members. So we're ready to just open this up. Like, this is too broad. And this is too open, and I don't want us to be taken advantage of. I don't know if anybody would do that, but this policy is too broad and opens up the whole reservation and all of our housing stock. I just don't think it's written well enough. So, thank you.
And just one thing to clarify, the policy reflects the HUD requirements. So a lot of, well, I would say probably 95% of the policy, if you did choose to adopt an essential family policy, you would have to include, because HUD mandates it as a required language to put in the policy. But you don't have to adopt it, right? You don't have to adopt it at all. And one thing that you know, we could look at if council wants us to is whether you could apply an essential family policy to a subset of housing. I think this is really commonly applied across the board as a general policy applicable to all IHBG housing for a tribe. But we could look into whether it would be compliant with HUD regs to say, apply it only to the tiny homes or only a subset. I just don't want to speak to whether that's compliant now because I'm not sure what the answer is, but we could look into that if council was interested too. I just wanted to put that on the table.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we are trying to recruit, or not we are, but the BIA is trying to recruit law enforcement for us. And I know that sometimes we use, like, I'll say the assisted living, I was going to say the Wrinkle Ranch, but the Wrinkle Ranch apartment for law enforcement sometimes. So we know we're going to probably be getting additional officers through the Bureau. I don't know when, though, that's just a question. But that's where housing can say that that officer can stay there. We don't have a policy in place, we can't do that. It's ultimately up to the housing director.
What if we just drafted up a policy just geared towards the tiny homes? Just a thought.
One for the PD too.
Can you say that again, Kathy?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to do one for anything dealing with law enforcement and safety and that type of thing for sure. Not just ambulance. Let's table this and discuss it more. I think we have to discuss it more to figure out exactly what we're going to do. And maybe we can bring it back to the next meeting. I don't think we'll get a BIA officer in that short period of time. Do you have a motion to table?
Move.
Second.
I can't hear.
That would be both
have a
of
question.
them, right, Kathy?
You
That
talk,
would be, go ahead.
well, I'll say it.
Okay.
Are we tabling Boysport Housing Essential Housing Policy and the Law Enforcement Family Policy? Are they similar, Jeff?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I mean, they're similar in the sense that they're exceptions again that allow non-low income families to access housing. The law enforcement one's just a separate policy. They go together typically, but they're technically separate standards. And the second policy does essentially the same thing as the first, but it applies specifically to law enforcement. And that policy also just recites the HUD requirements that a law enforcement family would need to have in order to access that Indian Housing Block Grant housing. So yeah, they are the same in the sense that they allow access to housing for HUD exceptions.
Okay, I was just talking about the one policy that we were discussing, but what do you guys want to do?
I'd like to talk about a subset or just the tiny homes, just a certain set of homes that would be options for both of these essential and law enforcement, because law enforcement did have housing right alongside the law enforcement center. You know, they had that. So I think that we need to shore this up so it's not so broad and it's clear. So I'd like to table both.
Okay. Is that a motion, Tara?
Yes.
Okay, motion by Tara to table, and if we could bring it back to the next meeting, that'd be great. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Shane?
Yep.
Okay. Second by Shane, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'd like,
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Oh, sorry, thanks.
yeah, sorry about that, Kathy, but I'd like to mention, I got a message saying that from a band member. It says, chairman isn't supposed to be giving an opinion during debate unless they relinquish chair to the next highest presiding officer until the question about the essential families is over. And it comes from, I think, the book Robert's Rule of Order. I can't really read that right now, but out of the book. But yeah, I'm just sharing with what was mentioned to me.
Nikki, I couldn't hear that.
Why did he say that? Oh.
I can repeat it again. Needed. It says, Kathy isn't supposed to be giving an opinion during debate unless she relinquishes the chair to the next highest presiding officer until the question about the essential families is over. I'm just reading a message I got, and it's from Robert's Rule of Order.
Okay, let's move on. What's next?
All right, next we got Aaron Danielson to discuss the range mental health on crisis service offered.
Oh, pretty. Hi, Erin Danielson, Boys Fort Behavioral Health Services Coordinator. I have with me today, and I'll have these ladies do a little 2-minute speech on them, but I want to give a little background. Range Mental Health is collaborating with Boys Fort. As of this summer, in 2023, they had came to us and wanted to collaborate with us. Pam Parson, Peyton Counts, myself, Michelle Long, I don't remember, I think that was it. On Boys Fort side, met with Anne-Marie Florist, who's the CEO of Range Mental Health, Danielle, and a gentleman that I don't remember his name. We sat at the table and we're talking about what brings this collaboration. And they were being accredited by CCBHC, if I believe the acronym's right, with DHS. But what they needed was collaboration with the local tribe. Great. We are low on providers. We would love the help. What can they do for us? And so since then, we have been talking, and back in September during Suicide Awareness Prevention Month, they did come to Nett Lake and Vermilion to provide a presentation on their mobile crisis unit, which I know if anyone has ever called the mobile crisis unit, 10 years ago, it did not come to Nett Lake. They said it was too far. That is no longer the case. And we are here today to let everybody know that if someone is in crisis or having a mental health challenge, that they are allowed to call the 988 or the 800 number that they did make pretty little folders that has a lot of really good information for everyone at the table here and then anyone in the audience. And we do have them in the office of their 800 number. And I want them to be able to call the 800 number if yourself is in a situation that you're uncomfortable with and don't know what to do, or if your auntie is in a situation or your child is in a situation that you're at a loss and do not know what to do. So I'm going to have Danielle Spolerich come on up, each at a time. Katie Finch, Gabby Suikkanen. Now these are the boots on the ground directors and supervisors for Range Mental Health. So hopefully they will be able to answer any, trying to think of the right words, any actual not client, but like logistics of it. Now, anything about the contract or anything like that, I do want you to know that that's Anne-Marie Flores' bucket. Okay? So, any questions so far for me?
I know that before the mobile crisis unit wouldn't come to Nett Lake, so that's good to know that they will.
Yes.
Because, when people are in crisis, they need those services. So that's really good information. Chief McWitch for that.
Okay, so I'll let Danny talk, and I'm going to go get folders for all you ladies and gents.
Hi.
I am Danny Spolarch. I'm the Director of Crisis Services for Range Mental Health. And Aaron had asked if we could come up and just give you guys a brief overview of what services that we're offering now, as we have expanded, and as well as what services we can offer for you here. So as she mentioned, our mobile crisis team will respond up to Vermilion or Net Lake. We do ask that we get a couple hours because it's a bit of a drive and some of our people don't live in the Virginia area either. We have the ability to do telehealth on demand. So if somebody doesn't want us to pop up at their house, we can do telehealth, or we can also do phone triage. I do really strongly suggest that everybody calls that 844 number versus 988, because 988 is not geolocated yet and is probably quite a ways out. So if you have a phone that you got in Florida and has a Florida area code, you are going to get the crisis line in Florida. So it's just simply matched to your area code. If you call the 844 number, which we have on our materials, that will get you to our local first call for help. They will immediately start de-escalating if you need help or if somebody with you needs help, and they will dispatch our staff to you. Katie is with us. She can talk a bit more about mobile crisis. That's her department, which she supervises. Gabby Soikinen handles the crisis or the compassionate community response team. They kind of fill those other gaps that our mobile crisis doesn't. There is a drop-in center in Virginia in the mall, so anyone can drop in during the day and one of them will be there. And they help with things like if you have a need for gas, you're stranded in Virginia, you can't get home, they can help with things like that. They can fill those small gaps of gas cards if you need a meal, if you need clothing, if you need boots. They fill those kind of smaller gaps that mobile crisis can't quite reach. And then I am office at the Wellstone Center, and we have expanded our intake criteria there. So a lot of the barriers that we used to have are now removed. So if you are in crisis, you do not have a communicable disease, you're not immediately under the influence, we will do everything in our power to get you in. Insurance. You do not need insurance. We do not turn away anybody from our crisis services due to inability to pay. So we do have navigators on site. Excuse me, we are going to start having navigators on 24/7. So if you don't have insurance, we will try to get you a policy. If we can't get you a policy, we will figure out under our own means on how to get your stay covered. We will not be forcing anyone to pay to get crisis services.
Yes, you're offering it to Nut Lake and Vermilion. Do you cover like the Duluth area as well?
Nope, we cover down to Cotton. And then south of Cotton is covered by their own team.
Mm-hmm.
And then west of Nashwakish is covered by the Itasca team. But we all work collectively under that first call for help number. So as long as you call that 844, they will make sure that somebody gets in contact with you.
Has there been times where you haven't actually been able to help somebody? Then what?
I'll probably let Katie take that one a bit more because that's her department or else Gabby's, but it doesn't happen often because if they don't want to come to the Wellstone, we will offer them stabilization in the community through our mobile crisis program. If they don't want to meet with a crisis worker, then we will offer them Gabby's team who can come in at least try to fill those gaps for those immediate needs. So within those three levels, we don't often get turned down for services because people come to us because they need us. So. If you guys don't have any questions for me, I will pass off to Katie who can talk more about mobile crisis.
All I think Danny covered quite a bit of our program, but we're mobile crisis. We are a voluntary crisis, so when people call and we come and meet with them, they have to voluntarily want to meet with us. We have our 24/7 crisis line. We have, yes, Katie Finch. I am the program supervisor of the mobile crisis team. Okay. So yes, we are a 24/7 crisis line. As Danny said, it goes through first call for help, and then they will warm transfer the call to us when we are needed, and if the person voluntarily wants to speak with us. We usually do a phone triage and kind of discuss resources and such over the phone and try to get a picture of what's going on, see if they want to meet with us in person. We respond and we do an assessment to kind of get a bigger picture of what's going on, what kind of stressors they're experiencing, what kind of symptoms they're experiencing, and then do a treatment plan to link them up with local resources and see if they want to do therapy, go to the Wellstone. And we do see all ages, so we see children and adults.
I don't know if you can hear me, but what is the what happens if someone is in a crisis where they really are a threat to themselves or others? Do you make a referral then to law enforcement, or how does that work when they're to the point where they really can't be at home? Is kind of where I'm getting at.
Well, usually if they call us, and they usually just by them contacting us, they are seeking help. And we will go in and see them and assess and see if they do need to go out to the hospital. And if they unfortunately sometimes don't want to go voluntarily, we may have to bring in law enforcement. But we usually try to just encourage them to go to the hospital on their own. And usually people are pretty by our encouragement will want to go and have us go with them. So if they are actively
really good
having
service. I'm really happy that you guys are in our area and doing the presentation today, because it's a much needed service, because there are a lot of people that get into the crisis situation and they don't know where to go. So I think it's a really good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Katie. So if someone is a danger to themselves and they have called the crisis unit and you respond, is there a possibility that when you arrive and you do your assessment that you would be able to get them to the Wellstone Center versus a hospital?
That's what we try to do. We try to avoid psychiatric hospitalization as much as possible. So we try to see if they are a good fit for Wellstone. We want them to get to one of those kind of levels versus we don't want to force people to go to the hospital. If it's needed, we will go with them, because that is a scary process. But we try to prevent that at all costs, and that's what our program is.
I have one question. You probably already know what I'm gonna ask. I did attend your presentation, and I thought it was really informative. I really liked it. I had to speed down and come see you guys. That's why I asked you guys to present at a meeting or in a public forum, so that our band members know that this service is available. My question is somebody, a family member, whether it be if it's a single mom or a single dad, or even anything like this, if they call you in a crisis, are they going to go get their kids taken away? Because I think that's one of the things that people are afraid of, to ask for help, because they think that something's, just by asking for help and they're in a crisis, that puts them at a disadvantage and their kids get taken away and then the whole system takes over. Can you address that?
Well, when people are in a crisis and they ask for help, we're not going to come in to get them in trouble or get CPS involved. We're going to try to work with them to find the best course of action to help them through this crisis. See if there's other childcare available if they want to go to Wellstone, or if we can do it on more of an outpatient basis. We want to help support them and meet them where they're at.
Thank you, because that's one of the big barriers, I think, that for asking for help.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Got it.
Any other questions or comments? I think it's a great program.
I'm going to have Gabby come up then also to represent CCRT. And she can explain her community crisis response team.
All right. So CCRT is our newest program. I'm Gabby Soikin, I'm the CCRT program supervisor. We are not 24/7, so we do rely on mobile crisis for kind of that 24/7 coverage. But we're out of the Virginia Mall, but also cover northern St. Louis County. Our program kind of is related to biopsychosocial needs related to things not strictly related to that mental health. So we do things like mental health, substance use, or chemical dependency, and a lot of biopsychosocial needs like homelessness, housing insecurity, food insecurity, things if people need clothing, kind of all those additional needs that fall under the umbrella of crisis that people face but are not strictly related to mental health. We try to help link and connect to services and be that kind of warm handoff and connection for people. And we can also be contacted through First Call for Help, so that 844 number, and can always just be dropped in on in the mall. We do some welfare checks for law enforcement, started as a co-response program primarily with law enforcement, fire, and EMS, but really have grown to take a lot of community referrals and be just a community outreach program in general. Any questions on any of that?
Great resources.
Just for the audience information, when they say 844, the mobile crisis program is 844-772-4724. We could have this on our website, right? Can you get all this information on our website? And maybe we can even send an alert out for this information? Thank you. Sounds good.
Good idea.
Also, Gabby and I are planning on doing a Safe Talk trainings, one in Net Lake and one in Vermilion in the future. Kind of, I know we just had mental health first aid training in September, and then we did in May, but now we're going to try to alternate with different different models of trying to have some kind of mental health first aid. And so it's just another, like I know in my previous role, I taught psychological first aid. It's the same thing. It's just through Boys Fort, we did mental health first aid. And now through them, they do have one that's called Safe Talk. So we can keep the programs rolling as much as we can, trying. And with that, I'm good on that topic. Any questions?
Thank you very much for coming and presenting.
Another item on the agenda?
Transmission, right? You have another topic?
Okay.
All right, so the other thing that I am to present are carryover monies from our mental health block grant from 22-23 fiscal year to the 23-24 fiscal year that ends in June, started in June of 23. And so this is my first time doing this. They said it was needed to be presented to the council. DHS said they already sent Kathy the form to sign in DocuSign. So it's DHS has allotted monies that they send to Boys Fort for mental health services, 5-year contracts, and it's renewed again for the next 5 years as well. So this is just carryover monies of $24,000 from last year. And just ask.
Any questions on the grant renewal, on the carryover? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve.
Oh, hang on.
Yes, my question is that, with this carryover, is this the last time you're going to be able to carry it over, or is it ongoing?
Nope, this will be the last one. In June of 24, it starts the new contract. So this one is carryover from June of 23 to July 23, that fiscal year.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if no other questions, is there a motion to approve the grant for the carryover for mental health?
Second.
Yeah. Who made the motion? Tara?
Tara,
Motion by Tara. Is there a second?
Shane,
Second again.
Second by Shane. Oh, wait, now, was that Shane that made the motion?
no, Tara made the motion.
Okay. Seconded by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, silent, motion carried. Sorry about that.
All right, so next on the list is Randy Long to discuss the request to Custom Theaters Incorporated for the key card system at Fortune Bay.
Okay.
Due to some recent changes in this project, I'd like to rescind this sole source request. There is going to need to be some minor construction needed for this project, possibly involving our TARO program. To do, I think, better justice for the tribal government, I think we could best represent this project through an RFP process. I can write this up and have it on our website for applicants to review by late Monday afternoon.
Any questions for Randy? If not, I'll call for a motion to rescind the previous sole source request for the Fortune Bay. Is it keyless entry, Randy?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, keyless entry. Do we have a motion to approve that rescinding of that motion and go to
This is Travis.
sole source? Is that Travis?
Yeah.
yes,
Tara,
Motion
second.
by Travis. Is there a second by Tara?
yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent, motion carried. Thank you, Randy. Good
Thanks,
job.
everyone.
All right, so next we have Kim Greiner to come discuss the 429 or 5242 from the state request.
Okay.
Good evening. We received an email from Dawn Blanchard at the Minnesota Department of Revenue. She's the tribal liaison. And the legislator is proposing changing language for I always forget, it's one of the new allocations that the state has done out of the new funds. It is for the statewide affordable housing aid, and they want to make the change to the language, and they need a response by 3 o'clock on Friday. In the legislature, they want to remove in the reporting requirement that we have to turn in enrollment numbers.
Say that again, Kathy.
They want to hear from the tribes by 3 o'clock Friday.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had asked Luke to throw this on so we could just, because you guys were all together, we could get it done and get a response back.
Funding, or is it ongoing?
What's that?
Is it one-time funding or is it ongoing?
Is this the one that, I'm not sure if it's ongoing, but
okay.
Because there's so many, there's like those 5 or 6 different new funds coming out, but so as in July or in June of 2024, we don't have to approve, or we don't have to submit the enrollment numbers to get the funding. We just have to say that we want the funds.
Jeff has his hand up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that I believe this is annual funding. They could always rescind the allocation, but I believe this is an annual appropriation of 1.2 million for the eligible tribes per year.
Again, are they going to split that 6 ways then? Is that the idea?
There's 8 listed eligible tribes listed in the language. So yeah, then it gets split equally, right, Jeff?
Yeah, the current legislation is an equal split. So this reporting requirement wasn't for enrollment, wasn't actually related to the amount of allocation the tribes would receive. It was just a reporting requirement that came along with the application. So rescinding this and removing the reporting requirement, the allocation to the tribe, based on my reading of the legislation, would still stay the same.
Okay. I think it would work out better if it was the way that they're recommending without sending the enrollment, because we know some tribes have more enrollment than we do. So, okay. Council, do you want to go with that recommendation?
I have a question for Jeff. You know how they always on the state side or whatever, they're always asking us to regarding our sovereignty. Is there anything like that to that effect?
Not in the legislation itself. And, you know, regarding sort of, I know that, you know, voice forward, it's important to maintain data sovereignty as well. And I don't know how this proposal came about, but I'm sort of wondering if it was in part related to some pushback from tribes that sort of said, you know, is this really necessary? Trying to sort of protect that data. So there's nothing in the legislation about specifically about tribal sovereignty itself, though.
Any other questions? Is the council okay with not using the enrollment data?
I'll make the motion to remove the need to provide enrollment numbers to the state.
Okay, motion by Tara. Is there a second?
Second, Travis.
Second by Travis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Thank you, Kim. Good job.
All right, so the last thing we have is Jalen to discuss the community need with Voyagers, community input and engagement.
So I have a couple of people here today, but basically we just wanted to do a quick little intro and then talking about some of the community events that we'd like to do, community planning that the Voyagers Conservancy would like to do with Boys Fort and the community, as well as the Voyagers Conservancy. So we have Christina here from the Voyagers Conservancy, as well as Vanessa. Or Larissa, sorry about that.
And I think I'm unmuted. Larissa, I can perhaps go first.
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, council members. Thank you very much for adding time to your busy agenda for us. My name is Christina Hausman-Rohde. I'm the director of the Voyagers Conservancy. I apologize, I'm not there in person. I'm under the weather. But I welcome the opportunity to speak with you. Just wanted to quickly share who we are, and then we have a request to the council members to engage in a community engagement process for our education program. The Voyagers Conservancy is a 501c3 nonprofit entity. I recognize that as a sovereign nation, the Bois Forte community works directly with the National Park Service, and we are not here to speak on behalf of Voyagers National Park or the National Park Service directly, but we do work in close partnership with the National Park Service. And we, as a philanthropic and program partner to the park, we fund many projects and initiatives at Voyagers National Park. And moving forward, it's critical that we ensure that any investment that we make in any new programs that we develop or any project we fund at the park better centers and preserves the original people of what is today Voyageurs National Park. Currently, our organization is working with the National Park Service on a broad range of projects. We provide support for everything from wetland restoration, dark sky preservation, and one of our big initiatives right now is to establish what we call the Voyageurs Classroom, which is a broad environmental education program. And so currently our organization is actually leading and implementing all environmental education and youth engagement on behalf of the National Park at Voyageurs. This includes overnight experiences for youth in the park, as well as programming that we bring to communities and schools. And moving forward, we feel it's obviously essential that any education programming that we develop make sure that the Ojibwe history and modern day voice is very much centered in that work. We do have some emerging work with Jalen, and he's been really generous with his time. But we would really love to be able to implement a process to have some specific community engagement so that our programming can be stronger. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Larissa, to explain what our goals would be there and what that request would be.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, everyone. My name is Larissa. I'm a consultant working with the Voyageurs Conservancy. What we've been doing over the last year or so is we've been taking a look at the existing environmental education lessons and just kind of reviewing them for what content they currently have in terms of any mention of Indigenous people or Indigenous topics, removing anything that is insensitive or disparaging to Ojibwe people, which frankly there has been a lot of that. Updating these things when possible to include anything that would be considered sort of common knowledge or public domain knowledge about Ojibwe history, but not going in depth into anything that is very specific or culturally sensitive information without first contacting folks within the communities, and then adding in some Ojibwe language components when possible as well. Just wherever we can, bringing forward that Ojibwe presence in the landscape for students who are both Indigenous and non-Indigenous that are receiving this programming. We're also hoping through our project to be able to build some bridges with the local communities, Native teachers, students, parents, families, to build a connection to the national park. People who are living in this landscape or folks who are living outside of this landscape, because some of these programs we have provided for folks all over the United States. So this is information that is being received by our local student population, by the student population in Minnesota at large, and by students around the country. This project also has a commitment to supporting and funding Indigenous youth experiences in Voyageurs National Park, which we actually began implementing this summer through our Teen Ambassador program, where, and Christina can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we were able to bring about, is it 50 Indigenous youth out into the park, paired with wilderness inquiry. So these students had the opportunity to go into Voyageurs National Park. They were canoeing, they were camping, they were learning on the land-based learning, which as we know is very important. And that's something that we hope to be able to continue to do, to expand on, hopefully in the future, to have Indigenous teachers who can come on these trips and teach the kids, you know, specific cultural things in the landscape, something we were not able to provide this summer, but we hope to be able to do in the future. So what we would like to be able to do moving forward is we would like to be able to work with the community members, and we would like some feedback on what these lessons should include, what kind of cultural information should be said, what the language should be included in there. And we don't want to do any of this without having community feedback. So our hope is to be able to host a meeting in each of the communities. So that would be the Nett Lake community, the Lake Vermilion community, the Duluth urban community, and the Twin Cities urban community, starting in January. And I do have a flyer with me with some sort of preliminary information should this project and this engagement be approved by council. We also have a website that we've created with a landing page for updated information once we have specifics on where exactly these meetings are going to be held. So what we're seeking tonight is approval from council to begin holding these community meetings so that we can engage with Bois Forte community members in the on-reservation and off-reservation communities. And we thank you very much for your time, and we would love to answer any questions that anybody has for us.
Any questions?
I have a few questions. Okay, have you worked with 1854 Treaty Authority for these events or for any kind of collaboration?
So we have not currently reached out to 1854 Treaty Authority as of yet for this collaboration. I have worked with Marnie Caskey extensively in the past through an initiative that I work with Fond du Lac with. So I am familiar with Marnie and would definitely be reaching out to her. But as of yet, we have not.
Okay, so we don't recreate the wheel.
Can I add one quick comment there? We did work with 1854 Treaty on one of our youth outings for the first time this past summer. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yep. Okay. And we do have our own DNR, Natural Resources Department, so I'd like that to be a heavy component also.
Okay.
Our Boys and Girls Club, those types of things. And my question is, I see that we would be grateful for Jalen's collaboration and knowledge on this project. So I'm asking Jalen, do you have time, to assist these ladies in this agency? And how much time are you asking? And is there any funding for his time and assistance that he would be providing you?
So at least for me, the nice thing about working with these ladies is that they do a lot more of the planning and everything, and I just pretty much have shown up and offered my assistance and knowledge whenever it's been possible. And the same thing goes with like the DNR and stuff. I've mentioned kind of working with them and Boys and Girls Club. And the nice thing again about this is that they're offering to help with the capacity to do it. So it's not necessarily all on me or all on Tony or Brian to do the actual camp portion of things, or just community members even, but they have that, they'll have people there to help out with the camp, with the chaperoning portions of it, and implementing certain knowledge. They'll reach out to the people that we might ask them to, even if that means using our name to get into some of these conversations. And Larissa's worked up here before, and so she probably has some contacts as well to reach out to for some of this work. And then yeah, there's a lot of other things that I have kind of on my plate, but I think that this is one of the things that is important to the community and important to some of our, in my personal opinion, to be able to keep some of the traditional knowledge going with having people have this knowledge in the community, but may not necessarily have the accessibility for a full-scale camping expedition, especially in some places kind of remote or as historically and culturally important as the Voyageurs National Park. We can talk about some of the historical families and aspects of things up in that area, with like the wooden frogs and whatnot, and talking with some of the documentation that people like Jeff Richner and stuff have done before, and keeping that information passed down and moving on to the next generations is something that I've found important and something that I'm trying to make more time to be able to do.
And I can quickly add that we would provide compensation and travel expenses for Jalen and anyone working with us collaboratively on these projects.
Component, like Jalen said, bringing these things, keep these things coming, like wooden frogs and all that type of education that we don't really hear a lot about. But to keep those alive and going, education is key. And I really like this project, and I think it's a great idea because, and like Jalen said, they basically, it sounds like they offer the structure and he just has to give his advice and Jay's been doing a great job. So I think it's a great project. Good job, ladies and Jay.
Thank you.
I know we can probably, you requested a meeting with council. So we could probably get that going, and I'll have a lot more questions that need to be answered as far as, the money, and then data sharing, intellectual property, that kind of thing. I would like data shared with natural resources, with Jalen, things that are going to help them when they go to write for grants and such, so that they have that data.
And
also.
just for clarification, you might actually be talking about a different meeting that I've requested for a different project I'm working on. At the end of November.
But that's what it says here is I would like to request a meeting with council to further discuss initiatives to build a partnership.
Okay, that too.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Yes, thank you for reaching out to Boys Fort, and with the Voyageurs National Park and where it's located, you can see where it's located. It's located in our 1866 treaty area. How that all came about with our people was that they were part of the 1854 treaty, but they didn't officially sign it until the 1866 treaty, which established that area. Yep. And 1854 it did not grant us hunting rights, but it basically acknowledged the hunting rights. With the 1866 treaty, there's no language to that effect. However, that doesn't mean that they exist or don't exist. They do exist because after they signed that treaty, a little bit of history, is that my grandmother and her family lived on Pelican Lake, and they fished and gathered. That was when she was born in 1917. So that's well after that treaty was established. Mm-hmm. That's how they understood it, that we would continue to be able to hunt, fish, and gather in the 1866 treaty area. With you want to understand us as Boys Fort and our understanding of the treaties, that's great. Mm-hmm. And our history and our knowledge, and our people interacted with the tribes from Canada, the reserves up there. Mm-hmm. So there's the going back and forth. Yep. Thank you.
Any other comments? Is the council okay with Jay working with the Voyager Conservancy?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Good. Good. Do we have we'll just put in a motion. Do we have a motion to approve collaborating and coordinating with the Voyager Conservancy through Jalen and the Heritage Center?
Move, Mr. Travis.
Moved by Travis. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Robert?
Shane was first.
Oh, okay. Seconded by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Good job, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Miigwech.
Sorry, Jalen, it looks like your plate is even going to be more full. But thank you, Miigwech, for helping out all the time.
I have one thing. Representative Moyer wanted me to kind of give an update on a survey that is going on tomorrow and Friday. So I'll have a CEO of HHS, Dan Rabideau, kind of give a little brief summary of that going on at New Moon.
Thank you. We've talked a lot about some of the housing challenges that the band has as a whole, and I'm glad this was brought to my attention. So a quick announcement, and that is over the next couple of days, we'll be doing the Wilder homelessness survey. Once again, we've done this in the past. And we'll be staffing both Net Lake and Vermilion in the Human Services building at Net Lake and New Moon Services here in Vermilion. And folks can come in and answer some simple questions to help us determine the needs and the progress that we've made as a band over the last few years in terms of homeless prevention and some of the strategies. It'll also help us set the stage for some future development and expansion to assist in reducing and eliminating homelessness over time. So I thank the council member and Luke for bringing this to my attention. There are flyers that have been put out. It's very important for all of us to do our best in encouraging people. And if we know of people, and this is my little plug off the cuff, and that is, if you're homeless, you more than likely are suffering from transportation needs. And so if we identify as representatives of the tribe and representatives of this community, people in need, let's figure out a way to get them where they need to be so that they can help participate in this survey. And so we do have incentives. We have some gift cards. We'll have food. We have various things that we can provide once they're there. But do everything we can to encourage people to participate in this, because the better information and the more data we have, the more we can dedicate resources, the more we can make a case for bringing in additional resources to help as a whole and help fund these types of programs and the type of housing that the band members deserve. So again, I'm just putting a little plug in and a reminder that we have this going on over the next couple of days. That's going to help us establish a strategic vision for the next 4 to 5 years in terms of what we do for housing and homelessness. So please do our part in encouraging this.
Can we do this online? And second is it just for band members or is it just households?
I heard you. I'm looking at the information so that I don't misstate anything, but I do have some assistance from somebody that has more information on it. So Aaron, you're more than welcome to come on up or speak over there.
Erin Danielson. It is everybody, every household. I know they were doing the Wilder survey today at the Community Connect at the Iron Trail Convention Center. It is for everybody. And if there is a,
Say that again, Kathy.
Is there an online option or is it all in person?
all in person.
All in person.
Great. Thank you.
I was just going to add that thank you to the employees that work at New Moon and also at the shelter up in Nut Lake. Thank you for what you're doing, all the hard work that you all do. Thank you.
Elder survey is a good survey, and I know we've been doing it for years, but I'd like to see the numbers. If we can do an accumulation report from the years, we've been doing the survey to see where we're at, like a graph of some sort. That'd be great.
I also have a few comments. Okay, I've seen this flyer, and I don't know if it's Wilder who comes up with this, but 2 dates, 9 a.m. to 3:30 for homeless people to come to you is not really helpful, even though we have transit and everything. I think that the workers should be going to the homeless. And I think it should be weeks long, and I think it should be online, like Kathy asked. I know several, and I'm talking several, more than 10, maybe 15 homeless people. And that's just on the Lake side. So there's a few over in Vermilion. There's plenty in Duluth and surrounding areas in Minnesota. You cannot track them down, even 15 minutes at a time. It's getting cold now. I just think that we need to work harder at getting that accurate number. Providing 2 dates out of, what is this, every 4 years they do it, or is it every year? Every year? I just think we need to do better for that, to get an accurate number, to get accurate data. And folks completing the survey will receive a $20 gift card, limit 1 per household. They do not have a household. Does that mean over 18? Anybody over 18, they don't have a house, you know, they don't. I just, thank you, yes. It's not like I'm saying that you don't do good work, because I'm right there with you at a lot of your events. I just think that we would get a better picture if the staff went directly and went all over the res to find and try to get this information directly from the people who are homeless. So we'll try to get as many people to you into these events, to these 2 dates. But I'll just let you know right now, tomorrow, I already have, I'm bringing somebody who is homeless to an appointment. So they won't be filling that survey out tomorrow. And this has been an appointment that's been already, you know, we did this months ago. So we'll try to hit that Friday date. But 2 days out of the year is not enough. So if Wilder or whomever can extend that, I'd appreciate it. Miigwech.
Thank you, Tara. Good points. Any other comments on the Wilder survey? Okay, got to make sure we get people to fill that out. And if you know of people, bring it to them if you can. Like Tara said, you know, a lot of people might not have transportation or whatever it may be. So we can do our best, I think, too, to help in that manner. But you brought up some very good points. Anything else?
Nope, that's it, Kathy.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn at 7:51? Moved by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tara. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent. Motion carried. Everybody have a good evening and stay safe and stay warm. Higo Wabamin.
Thanks, Kathy.